I was sitting in my tiny Seattle studio apartment, staring at the notification on my phone screen. $3,000. The payment had just cleared from my biggest client, yet a tech company in San Francisco that hired me to redesign their entire brand identity. My hands were shaking, but not from excitement. I was thinking about my father and the last thing he said to me 3 months ago. What kind of idiots actually pay you for drawing pictures? That question had been playing on repeat in my head ever since. Part of me wanted to call him right then, to tell him about this moment. But then I remembered his final message. There will be no more transfers. That email sat in my inbox like a stone, a reminder that proving myself to him might be impossible. Before I dive into this whole story, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. If you have ever had someone in your family dismiss your dreams or mock what you do for a living, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe so you do not miss more stories about finding your own path when nobody believes in you. Now let me take you back to where this all started and how I got here. I grew up in a middle-class household in Portland, Oregon. My father worked as an accountant at a large insurance company. He spent 35 years at that same desk, processing numbers and managing spreadsheets. My mother was a nurse who retired early after decades of night shifts and long hours. I am an only child, which meant all their hopes and expectations landed squarely on my shoulders. They wanted security for me, stability, a clear career path that would not keep them awake at night, wondering if their son could pay his bills. From the time I was young, I loved drawing. I would spend hours sketching characters, designing logos for imaginary companies, creating posters for school events. But my father always treated it like a hobby, something cute that kids do before they grow up and face reality. He would say things like, "Art is for people who have money to waste, or you cannot build a life on pictures." He was not cruel about it. He genuinely believed he was protecting me from a hard life, so I followed his advice. I went to business school, got a degree in marketing, and landed a job as a marketing coordinator at a logistics company in Seattle. I moved there right after graduation, rented a one-bedroom apartment, and started the 9-to-5 routine. On paper, everything looked great. I had benefits, a retirement plan, a steady paycheck, but inside I felt like I was suffocating. Every day felt the same. I would sit in meetings talking about shipping routes and supply chain optimization, and I could not shake the feeling that I was living someone else's life. At night, and on weekends, I started taking on freelance design projects, just small things at first. A friend needed a logo for his coffee shop. A former classmate wanted help with her wedding invitations. Then a local nonprofit hired me to redesign their website graphics. I was not making much money, but I was happy. For the first time since college, I felt like I was doing something that mattered to me. I was good at it too. Clients kept coming back, referring me to others. I realized I had a knack for branding, for taking someone's vision and turning it into something visual and compelling. 2 years into my corporate job, I made a decision that would change everything. I got an offer from a startup to work as their in-house designer. The pay was better than what I was making at the logistics company. It was the safe move, the logical next step, but I turned it down. Instead, I quit my job entirely and decided to go full-time as a freelance graphic designer and brand consultant. I was 26 years old, and I was terrified. But I was also more sure of this decision than I had been of anything in my life. I called my parents to tell them the news. My mother answered first. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Honey, are you sure about this?" I told her I was. She sighed and said, "Well, if this is what you need to do, then try it. See how it goes. But your father is not going to like this." She was right. When my father got on the line, his reaction was immediate and harsh. "You are throwing away your degree, your future, all for what? To sit at home and doodle." I tried to explain that it was not doodling, that graphic design and branding were legitimate in demand skills. He cut me off. "This is reckless, Mikhail. You had a good job. People would kill for that kind of stability." I told him I was not happy there, that I needed to try something that felt meaningful. He laughed a bitter sound. "Meaningful does not pay the rent. Fine. Do whatever you want. But do not come crying to me when it all falls apart." That phone call ended badly. I hung up feeling like I had disappointed him in some fundamental way. But I also felt a spark of defiance. I was going to prove him wrong. I had to. The first 3 months of freelancing were brutal. Clients were hard to find. The work was inconsistent. Some weeks I would make $1,200. Other weeks, nothing. I burned through my savings faster than I expected. I had to move out of my one-bedroom apartment and into a smaller studio to cut costs. I stopped going out with friends. I lived on pasta and instant ramen. Every dollar mattered. My mother would call once a week to check on me. She never said much, but I could hear the worry in her voice. Then one day I noticed deposits in my bank account. $200 here, $300 there. Small amounts that I knew were from her. She was helping me without telling my father. I called her and said, "Mom, you do not have to do this." She said, "I know, honey, but I want to. Just do not tell your father." That arrangement lasted about 6 weeks. Then one night, I heard my phone buzz with a call from my parents' home number. I picked up and immediately heard shouting in the background. My father had found out about the money. I could hear him yelling at my mother. "You are enabling his failure. He is 28 years old, and he cannot even support himself. This is humiliating." My mother was trying to defend me, but he was relentless. Then he grabbed the phone. "I heard your mother has been sending you money," he said. His voice was ice cold. I did not know what to say. He continued before I could respond. "What kind of idiots actually pay you for drawing pictures, Mikal? You are 28 years old, and you cannot support yourself. This is embarrassing for the whole family. Do you understand that? When people ask me what my son does, I do not even know what to tell them." I tried to explain. I told him about my process, about the clients I was building relationships with, about the value that good design brings to businesses. He interrupted me. "Stop making excuses. Get a real job. That is all I am asking. Just grow up and get a real job." The call ended shortly after that. I sat alone in my studio staring at my laptop screen. My portfolio was open, showing the projects I had completed over the past few months. I was proud of that work, but in that moment I felt small. I wondered if my father was right. Maybe I was delusional. Maybe I was wasting my time. But something deeper in me refused to accept that. I knew I was on the right path. I just needed more time. 2 months later, it was Thanksgiving. I drove back to Portland to spend the holiday with my parents. The tension started the moment I walked through the door. My father barely looked at me. Dinner that night was uncomfortable. We sat around the table, my mother trying desperately to keep the conversation light. She asked about my apartment, about Seattle, about anything other than work. But my father was not interested in small talk. "So how is your little art project going?" he asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. I kept my voice calm. "It is going well, actually. I have been working with some interesting clients." He leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "And how much did these projects pay you?" "Enough for rent." I felt my face flush. I answered honestly. "Some months are better than others, but I am managing." He laughed. "Managing. That is a nice way of saying you are barely scraping by." My mother put her hand on his arm. "That is enough," but he pulled away. "No, it is not enough. He needs to hear this." He turned to me, his face hard. "You know what I told my colleagues when they asked about you? I said you are figuring things out, because I am too ashamed to say the truth. That my son quit a perfectly good job to play on a computer and call it work." I felt like I had been slapped. I tried to keep my composure. "Dad, I am building a career. It takes time." "Real careers do not take time," he shot back. "Real careers start with a real job. I worked 40 hours a week at your age. I supported myself. I did not need handouts from my parents." He pointed at me across the table. "You are unemployed. You are a burden. That is the truth." My mother stood up, her voice shaking. "That is enough. Stop it." But my father was not done. "He needs to hear this. He is wasting his life." I could not sit there anymore. I stood up my chair, scraping loudly against the floor, and walked out of the dining room. I went upstairs to my old bedroom and closed the door. I could hear my parents arguing downstairs. My mother was defending me, but my father was unrelenting. I put in my headphones and tried to block it out. The next morning I left early. I did not say goodbye to my father. My mother walked me to the car, tears in her eyes. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "He does not mean it. He is just worried about you." I nodded, but I did not believe her. I drove back to Seattle feeling more alone than I ever had. A week later, I received an email from my father. It was long and formal, like a business memo. "I have thought long and hard about this," it began. "Your mother and I have been subsidizing your lifestyle. The occasional gifts, the health insurance we are still paying for the phone bill, that is still under our plan. This needs to stop. You are an adult. You need to face the consequences of your choices. There will be no more transfers. No more help. When you are ready to get a real job and take responsibility for your life, call me. Until then, I think it is best if we keep our distance. I read that email 3 times. My hands were shaking. It was not about the money. I could figure out the money. It was the rejection. The finality of it. My father was cutting me off completely, not just financially, but emotionally. I felt like I had been disowned. The next 2 months were the darkest of my life. I worked 12 to 14-hour days, taking on every project I could find, even the ones that paid barely anything. I drank too much coffee and slept too little. My health suffered. I lost weight. I stopped answering calls from friends. I was obsessed with proving my father wrong, but the obsession was eating me alive. One night I sat on the floor of my studio eating instant ramen straight from the pot. I opened my phone and stared at my father's contact. I wanted to call him. I wanted to say, "You were right. I am sorry. I will go back to a normal job. Just please do not hate me." But I could not bring myself to press the call button. Instead, I opened my laptop and kept working. I told myself I will prove him wrong, no matter what it takes. The breakthrough came in my 5th month of complete radio silence from my father. I got a referral from a former client. A tech company in San Francisco needed a full rebrand. They were launching a new product and wanted a complete overhaul of their visual identity. Logo, website, design, marketing materials, brand guidelines, everything. The budget was $3,000. The timeline was 6 weeks. It was the biggest project I had ever been offered. I said yes immediately. I threw myself into that project like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. I researched the company inside and out. I studied their competitors, their target audience, their industry trends. I presented 3 rounds of concepts, each one more refined than the last. The client loved my work. They approved the final design without a single revision. When the project wrapped, they sent the payment within 24 hours. I was sitting in my studio when the notification came through. $3,000. I stared at my phone screen, barely able to process it. That was more than I used to make in a month at my corporate job, and I had earned it entirely through my own skills, my own effort. No one had handed it to me. No one had done me a favor. I had created something valuable, and someone had paid me what it was worth. But instead of feeling purely happy, I felt something more complicated. I thought about my father. I thought about his email. There will be no more transfers. I thought about his question. What kind of idiots actually pay you for drawing pictures? And I realized I finally had an answer. Smart business owners. People who understand that good design is not just decoration. It is communication. It is strategy. It is worth paying for. That project opened the floodgates. The tech company referred me to other startups in their network. Over the next 2 months, I landed 5 more projects. My income for the first month hit $4,000. The second month, $6,000. I could not believe it. I hired a virtual assistant to help with administrative tasks. I upgraded my equipment. I bought a new laptop and a drawing tablet. I moved out of the studio and into a proper 1-bedroom apartment with actual sunlight. I opened a business checking account. I built a professional website for my portfolio. Everything was falling into place, and I had done it without a single dollar from my family. Then one evening, my mother called. Her voice sounded lighter than it had in months. "Have you heard from your father?" she asked. "No," I said. "We have not talked since Thanksgiving." There was a pause. "Mikhail, your father was laid off last week." I felt my stomach drop. What? Why did not anyone tell me? She explained that his company had gone through a restructuring. They were cutting costs and eliminating positions. After 35 years, my father had been let go. His severance package was not much. He was looking for a new job, but at 65 years old, no one was hiring. "Mom, I am so sorry. I did not know." "I know, honey. He did not want you to know. He is very stressed. He is embarrassed." Then my mother said something that changed everything. "You know, Mikhail, your father has always been scared. He was scared of instability, scared of not having security. That is why he wanted you to have a real job, as he calls it. He did not want you to go through what he is going through now. He was trying to protect you, even if he did it in the worst possible way." I sat in silence processing this. My father was not cruel. He was afraid. His anger, his mockery, his rejection. It all came from fear. That did not excuse what he had said to me, but it helped me understand it. After I hung up with my mother, I sat awake for hours. I thought about my father sitting at that same desk for 35 years, believing that loyalty and hard work would protect him, and then being discarded like he had never mattered. I thought about how terrified he must be, and I thought about the email he had sent me. There will be no more transfers. I opened my laptop and started writing. It took me 2 hours to get the words right. I was not writing to gloat. I was not writing to get revenge. I was writing to set myself free. The email went like this. Dad, Mom told me about your job. I am sorry that happened to you. You deserved better after all those years. I want to tell you about my job. Over the past 6 months, I have built a client base. I am earning more now than I ever did in my corporate position. I am not asking for your approval or your validation anymore, but I need you to know this. I am not a failure. I am not unemployed. I am an entrepreneur. You asked me once what kind of idiots actually pay me for drawing pictures. The answer is smart business owners who understand the value of good design. People who know that branding is not just about looking pretty. It is about communicating who you are and what you stand for. It is about connecting with customers. And yes, they pay me well for it. I am not angry with you, Dad. I understand now that you were scared for me. You wanted me to have the security you thought you had. But that security was an illusion. You gave 35 years to a company that let you go without a second thought. I would rather build something for myself, even if it is risky, than spend my life depending on someone else to decide my worth. But here is what I need you to understand. I cannot have you in my life if you cannot respect what I do. There will be no more conversations where you belittle my work or mock my choices. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be on terms of mutual respect. I am done trying to prove myself to you. I have already proven it to myself, and that is what matters. The ball is in your court, Dad. I hope you will reach out. But if you do not, I will be okay. I have learned to stand on my own. My hand hovered over the mouse. This was it. This was the moment I had been building toward for months. One click, and I would be free. Free from the weight of his judgment. Free from the need for his approval. I took a deep breath and clicked send. The email disappeared from my screen. It was done. For 3 days I heard nothing. I went about my work meeting with clients, refining designs, responding to emails. I did not check my inbox obsessively. I did not sit by my phone, waiting for a response. I had said what I needed to say, and whatever happened next was out of my control. On the 4th day, I woke up to a new email from my father. It was short. I read your email multiple times. I have been thinking about what you said. You are right. I was scared. I am still scared. I do not know how to be without that job. It was my identity for so long. I am proud of you, McCall. I should have said that a long time ago. I do not know how to be a father to a son who chose a different path than I did. But I want to learn. Can we talk? I read those words over and over. My father had never said he was proud of me. Not once in my entire life. Tears started rolling down my face, and I did not try to stop them. This was not a full apology. It was not everything I wanted to hear. But it was a start. It was him admitting that he was wrong. It was him being vulnerable. And that was more than I ever expected. That weekend we had a phone call. It was awkward at first. Neither of us knew how to start. But slowly we found our rhythm. My father asked about my work, and this time he really listened. I explained my process, how I meet with clients to understand their vision, how I research their industry, how I create multiple concepts before landing on the final design. He asked questions. Real questions, not sarcastic ones. He wanted to understand. Then he talked about losing his job. He told me about the moment his manager called him into the office and handed him the severance letter. He told me how he felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. I realized I tied my entire worth to that job, he said. I do not know who I am without it. Maybe that is why I was so hard on you. I was projecting my fears onto you. I did not want you to feel as lost as I feel now. Hearing my father admit that broke something open in me. For the first time I saw him not as this towering figure of authority, but as a person. A scared, flawed person trying his best and failing sometimes just like everyone else. We ended the call with a promise to see each other at Christmas. It was not a perfect reconciliation. There was still hurt on both sides. But it was a beginning. Over the following months, my business continued to grow. I brought on 2 part-time freelancers to help with overflow work. I officially registered an LLC. My income became not just stable but genuinely good. I was making more than I ever imagined I would. But more importantly, I was happy. I loved what I did. I loved the creativity, the problem-solving, the relationships I built with clients. My relationship with my father improved slowly. He started asking about my projects not to criticize, but out of genuine curiosity. He even referred me to a few business owners he knew from his professional network. It was not perfect. There were still moments when he would say something that rubbed me the wrong way, some comment that hinted at his old beliefs. But now I had boundaries, and I was not afraid to enforce them. Looking back on everything, I learned something crucial. Your worth is not determined by anyone else's approval, not even your parents. The people who love you the most can sometimes hurt you the deepest, not because they are cruel, but because they are scared. They project their fears onto you, and if you are not careful, you will start to believe them. Success is not about proving other people wrong. It is about proving yourself right. It is about having the courage to build a life that feels true to you, even when everyone around you thinks you are making a mistake. Setting boundaries with the people you love is not selfish. It is self-respect. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is hit send on the email you are most afraid to write. That single action can change everything. It can set you free from years of trying to be someone you are not. It can open the door to real, honest relationships built on mutual respect instead of fear. These days, when a payment comes through from a client, I do not think about my father's question anymore. What kind of idiots actually pay you? Instead, I think about a different question. What kind of person would I be if I had never taken that risk? And the answer is always the same. Someone I would not recognize. Someone smaller. Someone still sitting in that office doing work that did not matter to him, waiting for someone else to decide his worth. I am glad I am not that person anymore. Have you ever had to choose between what your family wanted for you and what you wanted for yourself? Drop a comment below and tell me your story. I would love to hear it. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about finding your own path. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to disappoint people in order to stay true to yourself. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it gave you something to think about. Remember, the only approval you truly need is your own. I wish you courage on your own journey wherever it takes you.